As I promised, I thought I'd make a Russo-Ukraine war video. I don't know how many views this will get, but obviously before anyone jumps on the bandwagon and starts ripping me apart for inaccuracies or whatever, okay? I am not a military analyst. I don't fully know what I'm talking about. I'm an armchair general, okay? This is my opinion. This is a rant. If you wish to take this seriously, do so. If you don't want to take this seriously, also do so. I just thought I'd make it because, people kind of forgot about the whole thing over there. I mean, people are already forgetting about Iran, but modern people have short attention spans. I mean, you could almost say it's designed that way. But, anyways, let's stop wasting time. So, as you're all aware, for the last 4 years, so basically since about February 24th, 2022, the war in Ukraine has been, raging. It's been going on. In case you're not aware, the breakdown is simply this: the Russians lost a large chunk of their gains that they made in 2022. Well, maybe not large chunk, but they lost a decent chunk of those gains. They basically attacked too far into Ukraine, and then the Ukrainians counterattacked, and the Russians couldn't hold their positions anymore. So they kind of like withdrew. I think, what is it, near the south of Ukraine, the Russians withdrew back of the Dnipro River, and then in the, like, I guess in the north and the central part of Ukraine, so to speak, the Russians either never really made it through, or like, I think in the central-ish part of Ukraine, the Russians made it all the way to a city called Kharkiv, and then the Ukrainians, kicked them out, and the Russians fell. Um, I'm using the Ukrainian names because some, non-losers and people, no, blech, people outside my audience might be seeing this. So, because me personally, I would have just said the Dnieper River and Kharkov, because those were the old names, and those are the names that I'm accustomed to. But you know, politics and shit. And obviously as well, the Ukrainians have been attacking Russia a lot. They've, assassinated, I think, a top general, maybe a few. They engaged in Operation Spiderweb. I believe that was 2025, where they basically attacked Russian nuclear radars and nuclear bombers while they were on the ground on the airfields, and they succeeded. Um, they've been hitting Russian oil and gas facilities a lot. I think recently one of the major oil producing facilities, I think it's near the modern day city of St. Petersburg. I could be wrong. It went up in flames for I think like the second or third time. Um, the most recent attack that I know of is there were these two Russian helicopters. I don't know where they were, but they were pretty deep into Russia, and there was a crewman, a technician. He was working on one of them, and a Ukrainian drone basically just came in and said, "You know what? Your job's done. You're done for the day." Actually, no, you're not done for the day. You're done for the rest of your life. And it killed him, and it blew up the helicopter, or at least damaged that helicopter. There were about two. I think the other one got hit as well. Right, and Russia has obviously retaliated. Right, they've been launching drone strikes and strikes using bombers and fighter jets. They also did use their fancy dancy Reznik missiles, the IRBM or whatever it is. It's basically an intercontinental ballistic missile, as far as I'm aware, but the range has been decreased a bit, and it uses conventional, warheads instead of, nuclear ones, because obviously that would create a terrible international incident. So there's all that going on. Apparently, like up to 200, 250,000 Russian soldiers have died, and probably about three times that number, about 600,000 have been wounded. So I'd estimate that over the last, 4 years on the Russian side, they've taken close to, they've taken about 700 to 800,000 casualties. So that's dead and wounded. I mean, if you really want to round it up, they've taken close to 1 million losses. And this is over the last 4 years. Like the Soviet Union in 4 years, even though, yes, they had more manpower, they had more resources, and they were mobilized for an existential war. The Soviet Union in 4 years drove Germany all the way back from the gates of Moscow to Berlin. And they took Berlin and basically burned it to the ground. They didn't actually burn it to the ground, but you get what I'm trying to say. The modern Russians, in 4 years, have lost at least 30 to 40%, by my rough estimates, of their initial gains during the invasion. And they are slowly, very slowly grinding forward. In fact, apparently in Kiev, right, nightclubs are still open. People can still go to school. People can still live their life. I mean, this is the same capital lighting up your oil and gas facilities. This is the same capital who was able to invade your sovereign territory and take over parts of the area around the city of Kursk. Apparently, they tried to assassinate Vladimir Putin as well. I'm not sure that's true, but allegedly they flew drones in to try and strike his dacha, even though I'm pretty sure he wasn't there. Right? They've hit your nuclear bombers, they've hit your nuclear radars, and you are probably well aware that NATO is keeping them very well supplied. Like I can rather confidently say that most of the intelligence that Ukraine is getting, like half of the reason Ukraine is able to strike so deep into Russia is because the Americans, the rest of NATO, but especially the Americans, since they seem to have the largest intelligence apparatus out of all of NATO, they are providing the Ukrainians with intelligence on, hey, here are Russian positions and shit, blow them up. And obviously as well, they're using AI, right? Palantir, you've all heard of them. They're a pretty powerful American company. I think they've worked for the Israelis to help the Israelis, find Hamas terrorists. Although more realistically, it just seems like helping the Israelis to identify where the fuck to blow up across the Middle East, which is kind of useless because the Israelis just go in and blow it all up anyway. So it's like, what, you're just looking for like random like Hamas guys, and you're just gonna, I don't know, drop an entire year's worth of bombs on everybody else because you feel like it? Is that what's going on? Like, you use Palantir for the specialized kills, and then everybody else you just fly your planes in and boom, boom, boom. That's a joke. YouTube, don't censor me for this. Bro, if I get struck for this video, I'm going to be so pissed. Just because I mentioned Israel and stuff. Again, I'm not trying to insult Tel Aviv, okay? I am fucking saying what I'm seeing. That's what I appear to be seeing. Don't strike me. Plenty of other channels are saying worse things about them than I am, and they're not getting struck. So if you strike me, what the fuck? If I get a third strike, I will probably lose this channel, so I'll have to leave a link to like a backup or something. But anyways, the Russians are basically stuck. Like, they haven't progressed very far at all. And again, this is considering they have had 4 years, right? I mean, Vladimir Putin himself, I think he basically called the attacks on oil and gas done by terrorists and basically just dismissed them. You are at war. You started the fucking war. You invaded Ukraine. You invaded them. You are at war. This is not a special military operation, no matter how much you want to phrase it. You're failing. Your own people are getting angry at you, right? Like Prigozhin, right? Prigozhin a while ago, he was getting mad, at Gerasimov and Shoigu. He's like, yo, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, my men are dying. I need more artillery shells. Like, help me out. Which may or may not have led to the Wagner coup of 2023. Of course, Wagner has renamed itself the Afrika Corps, which is a very fitting name. It's very ironic that these, like all these Russians are like neo-Nazis somehow, and it's just the Russians. I mean, the fucking Nazis hated you. Like, you're neo-Nazi. The same people you worship would have fucking murdered your ass in the 1940s. Okay? They intended to destroy your people, and you fucking what? You worship them? Like what the fuck? You nuts? The Afrika Corps? What kind of stupid name is that? Listen, the actual Afrika Corps fought Britain and America. You are getting your asses kicked to you by insurgent forces in Mali, in fucking Mali. Yes, these insurgents, they are not stupid. They know what they're doing. They've probably been accustomed to this kind of asymmetric warfare. Okay, but you suck. You can barely retain control of the country. The French went in, and they at least helped that nation, last. You did not, right? Again, Russia also had ties with Syria, right, to Bashar al-Assad. What happened? Oh no, 2024, December, whatever it was, that's something around there. Late 2024, HTS, which is basically made up a lot of former Al Qaeda, ISIS, all those guys, decides, hey, it's my country now. And the Russians just sat there, did nothing. It's like, what? You're not even gonna prop this guy up? Like, you don't care about your strategic interest anymore? What happened, bud? Right? Or a lot of the Russian air defense systems sent to Venezuela. Although to be fair, I feel like that was like there was a lot of bribery involved, and those were probably turned off. Right? They did nothing. Right? Whatever fancy Russian air defense systems sent to Iran as well, including the S-400s, well, they did nothing. The Americans just flying around dropping bombs and shit. I mean, the Iranians did, damage some American aircraft, and they do have infrared, I believe, to compensate for American electronic warfare. But still, like technically, you have the tools to end this war, right? You could easily launch a massive nationwide crippling cyber attack. You could probably commit to actually destroying logistics hubs and logistics routes from NATO in western Ukraine. You could probably properly strike Kiev with more force. You could possibly, right? I mean, this is probably the most that Putin is willing to escalate. I don't know. Fire off a few Rezhniks to prove your point instead of just dropping like one or two at a time on like insignificant targets. I don't know. Maybe you can improve your intelligence because your FSB apparently keeps getting assassinated by Ukrainian like intelligence agencies. Right? I think it's mainly the SBU. Like a lot of FSB officials are getting like murdered. I think like an FSB headquarters, in fact, was like recently struck, and like the same FSB was also tricked. Like the Ukrainians, like they faked this guy's death. So there's this one Ukrainian guy, and the FSB wanted him dead. They put out a bounty on him. So the Ukrainians faked his death, and then they collected the bounty. I'm like, how fucking dumb are you? The Federal Security Bureau or Security Service or whatever the fuck you are. Security, you couldn't secure a wet paper bag surrounded by a line of barbed wire, okay, from a bunch of kittens. It's like, how are you so fucking useless? Like, your country is being attacked. Your economy is being attacked. You have the means to at least do some form of damage. And you just say, oh, it's just terrorists. And you sit there like an idiot. Okay, this is what makes me think Putin is probably already bought out. I don't really think he's a genuine leader. I think he's a puppet. This is conspiracy theory territory. If you have ever heard of the Agenda 2030 plan, which is essentially this whole idea of like, oh, let's unite humanity and let's try to advance to a new age of technology, digital revolution and you know, green energies and stuff, which if you look at it a little bit more closely, it's basically about we are already rich and elite and we want to be even more rich and elite by taking control of everybody and just owning the fuck out of them. Like, I honestly feel like these guys bought Vladimir Putin out, and he's honestly just letting Russia just get slammed because, it's like, hey, Ukraine goes down, Russia goes down, NATO gets a little damage in the process. All works out just fine. I mean, he just seems like very calm and collected about the whole thing, right? And obviously, his intelligence before the invasion was just a massive failure. It's just like, bro, like it's not that hard, okay? Like, it is not easy to actually occupy in Ukraine and invade it now that there's like so many drones and now that Ukraine is obviously constantly adapting and learning. But again, major cyber attack Western logistics routes and hubs, sending supplies to Ukraine, in Western Ukraine, right? I don't know, maybe put some actual competent commanders in the field. Like a lot of the times, like the Russians, in the early stages of the war, and even now, they would just like throw tanks to the enemy, and the Ukrainians would just sit there and laugh at them and blow them up with anti-tank guided missiles. Or nowadays, just take like a swarm of 100 drones and just like, well, you got 20 tanks, and now they're all dead in 5 minutes. Right? The drones direct the artillery, the drones obviously the FEVs, they hit the tanks, so on and so forth. You know? And the Russians are obviously adapting too, but the issue with them is that they just seem very rigid and bureaucratic. It seems to be more of a system of loyalty and obedience, which is not surprising considering the foundations it was built upon with the oligarchs. And it's just like, even so, you still have the military means and the technology and the ability to actually bash Ukraine. Like to smack them around harder than you are now. Like as far as I can tell, right? Like as far as I can tell, the Russians only have at most like 500,000 to 700,000 troops like in Ukraine. Like that's the most troops they've had. Although yes, to a large degree, many have been killed, so maybe not so much anymore. Right? Like you have lost like 700 to 800,000 men. Not all of them are dead, but enough of them are. And for what? Minimal gains, you know? Your country being lit up day after day. Like what did you throw their lives away for? Like nothing? Is that what you think of your people? Like you do realize your people are eventually going to grow angry of this war and how you're handling it, and they may decide to maybe go, you know what, Putin, I think you should get the fuck out of office because you're not, doing jack shit. Right? Like a lot of these big military companies, in Russia, like they've been eating up these smaller businesses apparently because the central bank of Russia or whatever they raised like interest rates. Smaller businesses couldn't keep up, so state-funded firms, which is basically firms that the oligarchs own, and the oligarchs are pretty much all former mafia, so criminals. You know, like they don't have to pay the same 20% interest, and they can just gobble up all the small businesses who can't, afford to, stay afloat. I mean, this sounds a lot like America, but you know, it's just really like you're putting people out of work. You're throwing them into a meat grinder that doesn't seem to be really doing anything. And you basically act as if the war and these attacks mean nothing. I mean, yeah, he's shown up on TV before, military fatigue is looking stern, but my opinion is Putin is a senile old man. Putin is B, bought out by the oligarchs. He's pandering them. He's not pandering them. He's pandering to them like a lot, maybe too much even. And C, he has probably already been bought out by external actors as well. And he most likely is allowing his country to go down the toilet because, again, if you want to go all Alex Jones in this, it's part of the plan. Get your people desperate, get your people angry, create chaos, and then we can all step in and basically, be like, hey, wow, everything's wrong. How about Skynet? How about Terminators? How about we give you everything for free, but we just control it anyway? Right? Create the problem, offer the solution. I mean, again, a last point, right? Like, Russia's demographics already suck. I think there's already more women than men, and in part because, the Great Patriotic Wars, they call it, or World War II, killed so many of them. A ton of them left when the Soviet Union, like, dissolved, and more left when the war started. I'm not going to talk much about Ukraine, because I'm not that informed on them, and admittedly, I don't really care. But Ukraine is also not in a good spot. Like a lot of their nation, or at least a large part of their nation, I think it was like the so basically like the more fertile farmland in the east, and there's apparently large reserves of minerals there, rare earth minerals, I think, right? That's all been destroyed by fiber optic and shells and just the war. The land's just been destroyed. Like birds apparently are literally making nests out of fiber optic cable from like kamikaze drones. You know, in like the Donbass, which is where most of the fighting is. Right? A lot of Ukrainian citizens have fled, right? Especially many members of the female of the species of Ukrainian descent have fled. That's just to try and appease YouTube censors, right? They fled, right? A lot of them left for Europe or Canada or America or whatever, right? So you're going to have a population kind of crash. The Ukrainians are losing men too, right? In some cases, they're grabbing men off the streets and drag them into vans to conscript them. And like, if you had enough troops, I don't think you need to do that, right? Um, so they're losing a lot of men as well. So their population is going to take a big hit post-war too. They are heavily reliant on NATO assistance, I would argue. Especially for intelligence, right? Fire support, drone parts, so on and so forth. They're pretty dependent on NATO for that. I would argue for intelligence, very much so. I don't think Ukraine has any satellites of its own. It's kind of funny. Russia has the satellites too, but they just don't seem to be doing jack shit. right? Allegedly, Zelensky may be considering, importing, people from other countries into Ukraine to help with the labor shortage, which is kind of funny and insulting. It's like your own men are being sacrificed to like try and resist the Russians, and you're bringing people from another country to replace them. Like, sure, maybe you're trying to replace them because your men are fighting, but from the looks of it, there seems to be a lot of people in Western Ukraine who are doing just fine, and they don't really seem to have to worry about the war or anything. Like, why don't you put them to work and make them do something, right? And the issue with these foreign workers as well is that they're not going to have any loyalty to you. They don't care about your country, right? They're coming in to make money and leave. And you know what? Good. That's exactly what their philosophy should be. If I was one of these foreign workers, I'd feel the same way. It's like, I don't care. I don't care about your war. If I can come here and make dough and then get my paycheck and get the fuck out, why the fuck would I not do it? Right? Again, economics. People like money. People want money. Or maybe people need money. Go in, get out, leave. Most of these foreign workers are probably going to leave. And if they don't leave, then they just won't care. Like, they're not going to integrate into the economy, into the culture, and whatever. Because, again, they're from a different country, and I don't think Ukraine really is as much of an immigration-based nation as, the West. Or it's more specifically Canada and America, right? And also, do you think these guys really would want to integrate anyway? Like, it's like the nation is already half destroyed. The economy is probably fucked. And it's heavily dependent on outside support. Like, if I had to work in a nation like that, I mean, I'm not integrating. I don't care. I want my money. Like, you're fucked. There's no future here. I'm not gonna, play by your games, become a citizen. Like, citizen of what? A rum state? Again, I'm not trying to insult Ukraine here. I'm just saying that's a long-term outlook. It's not that great. I did also hear that major American firms like BlackRock, they were trying to like make deals with Ukraine, especially for the mineral wealth in the east, in eastern Ukraine, the Donbass. So it's just like, okay, well, so now big American corporations are also coming in and buying out your land. So Ukraine has been bought and sold, bought and paid for, or should I say bought and sold, whatever, right? Russia has probably been bought and paid for, or at least the top leadership has been. So it's just like two puppets like beating each other over the head. And guess what? The Ukrainian people and the Russian people are just sitting there like, hey, what the fuck? I can't live my fucking life. This is bullshit, One side doesn't really want to like commit anything and is just acting like this is nothing. And the other side is, well, they kind of need Europe and the States primarily to keep them afloat. One of them depends a little too much on external support. The other one internally is rotten. So these guys are going to be slugging out until like 2030, and the war will still not be over. And Russia will have advanced like another 5 inches for like another like 300,000 men. It's just like, wow. I mean, this is half the reason why I don't even care. Like, why I don't pay attention anymore, because I know nothing's going to change for like the next 10 years. Although we'll see how long the Russian people will tolerate this before they get mad and probably replace Putin with someone more hardline, because honestly, the guy doesn't really seem like he gives two fucks. I will say as well, there is this one general called General Surovikin, I think his name was, or Surovisin, I don't know what his name is. He was nicknamed General Armageddon because he fought in Syria. And his strategy was to basically target Ukraine energy infrastructure to try and cripple the nation. Which technically you could say that's a war crime, but there comes a point in war when nations don't give a shit. I mean, the Americans were literally threatening to do the same thing to Iran, and they're supposedly the harbinger, not harbinger. They're supposedly, like the ultimate role model for the democratic rules-based order or whatever the fuck they call it. It's full of shit. Might makes right, and money helps. That's really the gist of it. Um, right. Which I mean, it's still technically an effective strategy if you damage energy infrastructure on the civilian side and you force the Ukrainians to divert more of their resources and time to trying to deal with this internal problem. They might have less ability to respond to your military actions, which, no offense to the Surovikin, were kind of also like not terribly effective. You know what I mean? like a lot of these like top leadership in Russia, especially especially. So now I can't English properly, especially in the Ministry of Defense. You know, people like Shoigu and Gerasimov or Gerasimov. I'll call him Gerasimov then. You know, I'll just say Gerasimov, right? Like as far as I'm aware, they've never actually conducted an actual war. They don't have any real military experience. Like Shoigu, apparently, I think he's like the Minister of Defense or something. He has zero military experience. He's literally just one of Putin's friends that Putin put there. Like he doesn't fucking know what he's doing at all. And Gerasimov, like I don't know, he was supposedly drafting doctrines or whatever, but like he's clearly allowing the Ukraine war to just go on like this with all these men dying and they're advancing like a millimeter a day. So it's just like what are you guys doing? Like all this talk of patriotism, like are you really patriots, or are you guys all just thieves masquerading as people who care about your nation? It's like I don't think so, but so that's my rant. Um, yeah, I'm not saying what I said is true. I'm not saying what I said is accurate, but that's my opinion of the Russia-Ukraine war. I could probably go more in depth about drones and certain tactics they could use in relation to that, but there's honestly no real point because you know it's not gonna do anything. So yeah, there's my opinion. 26 minutes. Um, take of it what you will. See ya.